Hi, my name's Teresa and this is my channel Homestead Life. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we are going to be doing something super exciting, and that is some canning. We have been doing a few videos lately, if you've been following along, where we went to Hatch, New Mexico, grabbed some green chilies, brought them back, we roasted them a couple of different ways, and then we made a batch of green chili as well. We've got a couple of other batches that were made at another date and are ready to be canned, and we're going to do canning today of all of these batches. Wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the canners that I use and why I use them. This may be something of interest, it may not, but I just like to explain my point of view because there's so many different canners out there. This is my 16 quart canner that I have had for over 15 years. She's definitely well used. She rocks because she's been used a lot. Always been used on a gas cooktop, so she's been worn well. We have everything functioning here. We have a brand new one. I got another 16 quart. The reason that I got another one is that I've got a lot to can, and when I'm processing these, I want to do this as efficiently as possible, and I do have room to put 2 canners on my stove at a time and do that in an efficient manner that's also safe. The reason I didn't get a larger canner is, if you see over here with my cooktop, I don't have the head space for a taller canner, so I have to work with what I have. Now, there's nothing wrong with these, you just can't process extra large jars. I can do the quarts and I can do the pints without a problem, and that's what I'm going to be canning today. So a little bit about these and what you need to do when you're getting ready is you want to check over your canner. You want to make sure that everything is clean, that there's no debris in here, that you can see through the ports. There's these little ports here. You're going to want to make sure there's nothing obstructing them. And you're going to want to check the seals right here, and make sure they're nice and pliable. Now this is the seal to this one. As you can see, it's very pliable. There's no issues. And of course, I've already checked the other canner, which is the brand new lid, and everything is good there. I can see through both of the ports and everything's working. We can see with this particular canner, it's been well used. It's definitely loved. And it's clean. It's just not as shiny as the brand new one here, as you can see. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna move these over to the stove, but let me get these out of the way real quick so I can kind of go over some of our other canning supplies that we'll want to have at the ready. One of the things you're going to want to have is a jar lifter. Not a necessity, but a wonderful thing to have. You're going to want to have some of these funnels to help you when you're filling your jars. A debubbler, that's very helpful. This also, I like this one because it has this little stair step thing, and it shows you the different head spaces. So I'll show you on a jar here in a minute. I also have my ladle, and then I have, since this is the type of weighted canner, it's not a gauge canner, I've already got my weight set for what I need. Everybody will need to check what weight they need by their altitude. So I have these already set. I'm gonna put these over here. Then we have all of our cans, or jars. They're not actually cans, but jars. And I've got these already washed up. These are some used ones that I have used previously. What I do is I make sure that there are no chips, cracks, or anything like that in the jars, that they are clean. The reason that I have these rings already on them is I just want to make sure that they fit. I don't want to be in the middle of canning and filling up my jars and then scrambling for lids. I do have, or for the rings, I do have a whole big bag of them because I have so many jars. Then I have my pint jars, which are brand new, and I've got those already washed and ready to go. So let me bring you over to the stove a little bit closer, and over here to the island, and we will get some things jarred up and ready to get in the canner. We have our canners on the stove now, and I've added about 2 inches of water. I'm going to, because I have hard water here, I'm going to put in a splash or two of distilled white vinegar, which that will keep the jars from having a film form around the bottom. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn these on because we want to heat these up to about the same temperature as what we are putting in them. So I'm gonna put them on about a medium high to get those warming up while we go over here to the island and get those jars filled. Over here on the island, I'm going to start by taking a jar and opening up our chili over here. I'm gonna put this in the sink for the moment. And I am going to take some of our beautiful green chili. Now this is our hot batch, and it's been sitting for a little over a day, just really letting those flavors absorb. And I'm gonna go ahead and just fill this up to within 1 inch headspace. This smells absolutely delicious. I'm starting with the hot just because I know I won't eat it at the moment. Okay, there's the 1 inch headspace. And I have a towel here. 1 inch headspace is just up to the top here. And if I want to double check it, I can put this in here and notice it's right at 1 inch headspace. And we are going to continue doing this until all of the jars are full. And right now I'm going to just get enough jars to do a batch because it's going to take a little bit of time. This is a process and it's not quick, but it is important. The reason for canning is to make sure that your product is safe. Whether you're giving this to somebody, whether you're saving it for later, the biggest thing is you want to make sure that you don't give anybody something that would be bad, and you could risk botulism, which is why we pressure can this. Now the meat and everything that's in here is cooked, so we are good with that. So this is not what's called a raw pack method. This is a hot pack method, which is why we're heating up the stove and the water that's in the canners so that it won't be shocked to the system when we put it in the canner. You always want to make sure that the canner, when you're doing a hot pack method, is a little bit warmer, or at least the same temperature as what you're putting in there, so that you don't crack any jars. That's very important. And sometimes I make a mess, and that's why I have a paper towel here, so that I can wipe out my messes. Now you'll notice that I haven't put the lids on yet, and that's because I just kind of create a little system where I get them all jarred up first, and then I'll go ahead and put in the, put on the lids. And that's just the way that I do it. Some people may choose to completely jar up each individual jar, and that's fine, whatever works for you. To me, I like to kind of work and do this in a whole process. Yes, I make a mess on my counters, and I'm fine with that. Because I'm gonna wipe it up when we're all done. I've never known canning to be a clean, like sterile type process. You're going to make messes. You're going to get things kind of all over the place, and that's fine. Now this particular batch had larger chunks of the pork in it than the other batches, And I like to keep the batches separate. Now, when I get down a little ways, I will sometimes, if I don't have enough to can a full batch, and let's say like this batch is like down to where there's not a lot, I will combine 2 batches, just because each batch is gonna have a little bit different flavor. This one looks like I've got just, no, we're still good. So I try not to combine them. Now if I'm making batch after batch after batch, sometimes I will put them all in a similar roaster to kind of do its thing. And I'm not a big one who likes the super hot, but my kids do. I like more the medium, but I can like hot too. And we should be able to fit 7 of these big jars. In the canner. Now you'll notice some pieces that are stuck to the side of the roaster. I am not going to be scraping those off because those are some that are a little bit just burnt over time, and we don't want that flavor in our green chili. Okay, now this is 7, so this is going to be 1 batch. Now what I'm going to do, grab another paper towel, and here I have some some distilled vinegar, white distilled vinegar, and I'm gonna put just a little bit on the paper towel, and I'm gonna clean off all the tops. This is gonna help with the sealing of the jars and make sure that there's nothing on there that would prohibit the seal. I know that some people have a preference as to the lids they use. I don't. Oops, I have never had an issue with, I don't want to say never because then I'll jinx myself, but I have yet to have a really big issue with jars not sealing, even when I use an off-brand or non-name brand lid. Okay. Now, this is very important. When you're putting on your lids, you want to do what's called fingertip tight. And I've seen a lot of people lately on different social media platforms, including YouTube, that don't know what fingertip tight is. And I'm not saying that to be like I'm a know-it-all or anything, but this is fingertip tight. Now I can still crank it. We don't want to do that. We just want fingertip tight. So when you can't do this anymore, you're fingertip tight. And it's so funny because I will see people who talk about fingertip tight as they're cranking it down. And you want to make sure it's fingertip tight, crank. And I know that it's kind of almost like a natural instinct, right? To tighten a little bit more, but you don't want to do that. That's going to affect your seal. And sometimes I wonder if that's why those particular people don't have issues with their seals, not necessarily their choice in lid. See, like this one, that's fingertip tight. And sometimes I'm a little over the top of fingertip tight, so sometimes I'll just do the same thing and make sure they're just all fingertip tight. Because see, I could have done that a lot more fingertip tight. Now we're gonna go ahead and put these in the canner. And I'm going to choose my Old Faithful, just because I love her. Put these in here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, you'll see there is a close and open. I'm gonna wanna line that up and close it up. And I'm going to let this come up to a boil, and we're gonna be looking for this to steam. Once steam starts coming out of here, we're gonna do that for 10 minutes. And I'm gonna turn this other one down a little bit. And once we're doing that, it's venting for 10 minutes. Then we're gonna place our weight on top of it. And then once we put the weight on top, we're gonna do a next step where it starts to adjust. So I'll bring you back for that. We're gonna head over to the island and continue to fill jars. Fill these. Oops, I am making a mess, and that's okay. That is why we have paper towels at the ready. And I will continue to make a mess. I just have to be okay with that. Here we have 1/2 inch headspace. So you see it, it's 1/2 inch headspace. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's 1/2 inch headspace. Put this over here and go to the next. And continue to fill these until these other 7 are filled. Okay, so here we are, time to dip in the vinegar and go over these. And then we are going to take our lids and place them on. See here that I have some around the side here, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up. Okay, now on to putting the lids on, fingertip tight, fingertip tight. And I know that pressure canning can be a little intimidating if you've never done it. It's super easy and it's all about a rhythm and a flow. So again, fingertip tight. See, not wrenching down on it, but just fingertip tight. Let's go put these in the other canner and then check on the first canner. This is starting to steam, but it's not a steady stream yet. So I'm not gonna quite count that yet. Let's go ahead and put our jars in to the new canner. Now we're gonna take and look for the part that says open and close, and this one is open and close. Here we're gonna line it up. There we go. On this other canner, it's still not where it should be. We're gonna turn on the second one a little bit higher now to bring that up. Once it's a really steady stream and a hard steady stream, that's when I'm gonna start a 10-minute timer for it to pressurize. It's almost there, not quite. Now you'll see that this is a little more constant and steady. And so I'm gonna put the timer on for 10 minutes. and let this vent like this for 10 minutes. What will happen and start to happen is this gauge over here, this little piece over here will pop up. It may not pop up until after I put the weight on it, but I'm not too concerned about that. So we're gonna go ahead and let this vent for 10 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm going to wash up the smaller jars that are brand new, take off the tops, wash those up, and be prepared. This one still hasn't even begun to get up to the point of steaming yet. So the next one, so let's just kind of keep an eye on this. This is a good example of a more steady stream than a just starting to steam. So we still have about 1.5 minutes on this one before I put the weight on, maybe actually a little less, right at 1 minute now. And so they're going side by side. I have to say this is a little exciting. I have yet to do 2 canners at once. So, don't know why I never did that in the past, to be honest with you, because it would have taken a lot less time, but hey, it's all good. Normally when I'm doing canning, I'm doing it all by myself, so I get into a rhythm of what I'm making and canning and just kind of a round robin type of thing. Okay, there's our timer. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on. And now we're waiting for the next thing, which is for it to gently start rocking. And once it starts rocking, it's going to come into a rhythm that is very familiar to me. It kind of sounds like a constant click-clack, like on a train. And so once it does that, first of all, we're gonna wait for this to pop, right? And then we're gonna start hearing that rocking. That's when we're actually really getting the pressure. Now, if I were to have this on my power boil middle boiler or middle burner, this would have happened a lot faster, a lot sooner. I am on high for both of these, and I will be turning them down once they hit their pressure. I've noticed that medium high keeps this where it needs to be. So I'm gonna see how this one is. This one, this has already popped up. Oh, it just went back down, but it's not a full, like, super pressurized. Okay, our original Old Faithful just popped the little top over there, and it's not yet rocking, so it's taking its time. I've kind of thought it's funny that canning on 100 and some degree day is almost counterproductive because, you know, I'm heating my kitchen and trying to cool my house at the same time. But it's all good. Once this starts doing the gentle rocking motion, we are going to be looking at canning this. Let me give my little cheat sheet. I think it's 90 minutes. So 90 minutes for this recipe for quarts, and it'll be 75 minutes for pints. Our other one is still steaming, but it's not a steady stream yet. It's getting there. And hopefully soon I'll be able to put the 10-minute timer on for that one as well. And we'll check back then. And we have our new one at a steady stream. I don't know if you can quite see it, but it is definitely a steady stream. So I'm gonna do that for 10 minutes. And we still don't have gentle rocking on the other one yet, but I will bring you back when we do. Okay, we have gentle rocking motion. That is music to my ears. That is where we are about ready. I'm gonna wait for a second until it stays that way. That means we are up to pressure. It is gently rocking. This has the correct weight. I believe it's 10 pounds of pressure. Yes, it's 10. So we got our 10 pounds of pressure on here, and it's doing its little rocking thing. Now, when we set our timer for the 90 minutes, one thing we're gonna have to remember is if this stops rocking for any reason and loses pressure, you have to bring it back up to pressure and start your 90 minutes again. So it's very, very critical that you make sure that you pay attention to this. And that's why a lot of people have a tendency to do things like, oh, I don't know, use the electric pressure canner, which I'll talk about later, and why I don't and won't use one. So we have this nice gentle rocking. It's gonna get a little out of control here in a second, so I'm gonna play around with it and lower my gas just a little until I find that spot where it's still rocking. You don't want it to be too heavily rocking. And it's taking a little bit longer to come up to pressure for me than it normally would, just because I'm not using my power boil on my middle. Okay, I'm moving this down, we're to medium high, and we're still good. All right, now I'm gonna put my 90 minutes on my timer. I've got 3 minutes and 49 seconds left on this. And so let me set the timer on my phone. Hey Siri, set a timer for 90 minutes. All right, so that will go off in 90 minutes as long as we keep pressure here. We're waiting, we've got about 3.5 minutes on this for venting before we put the weight on the new one. And we'll check back here in just a few. The timer just went off for our new canner. So gone ahead and put that on right now, the weight, and this one is still gently rocking. I already have the timer going for that. This one, we'll wait for it to start rocking, and then we will set a timer for 90 minutes on that as well. Okay, we have our second pressure canner rocking, so we are going to set our timer for another 90 minutes. Timer. And so now I have 2 timers going. Siri's got 1 timer going for this canner, and I have my microwave timer for this one. We'll be back in 90 minutes. In the meantime, I am just cleaning jars. So the timer just went off for this canner. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. And we're gonna let it stop rocking. Once it stops rocking and nothing's moving and this drops, then I will set a timer for 10 minutes and then we'll open it. This one still has just under 15 minutes left to processing time, and so we'll be back in a minute. The top here in the little button here just dropped on this original canner, so I'm going to now set the timer for 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, then I will remove this little weight and we should be able to open it. Okay, so now that we're on this other side here, so maybe you can get a better viewpoint, we're gonna go ahead and open up our lid. And I always do this away from me because there's still some steam that comes out. And then I am just going to put the lid back here on the island. Everything looks really good. As you can see, nothing broke. We're gonna let this sit here for a minute or so, just kind of on its own. We almost could have used a little more water. There's just a little bit of water left in there. So next batch, I'm gonna put a little bit more in just to be super safe. I kind of eyeball the water in there, but this is looking really good. In just a few minutes here, we're gonna move this out. So let's let this sit for about 5 more minutes, maybe 10 more minutes, and then we will move it out. And I'm gonna go ahead and move these from inside the canner over onto this dish, or this towel. This is just one of my clean bath towels, and I just have it folded in half. And we just simply lift and move over. Now, we're gonna want to have a little bit of space in between each jar. We don't want to have it too close. And if you noticed, we had 1 inch of head space, but it's come down a little bit. And that does happen. That's from a little bit of siphoning. It's not the end of the world. So I like to make sure and and have a good amount of space in between these. All right, this is our second canner, and it is ready to have the lid taken off as well. And just because it's hot, we're going to lift this away from us. And I'll put the lid behind. It's been about 10 minutes or so. I've got this one reset, and I'm going to take these out and place them over here carefully again. Now you'll see there's not as much siphoning from this one. Not sure exactly why, but it is what it is. And then I am going to let these cool for 12 hours before I come back and check them to see if things have set. In the meantime, the water cleaned up, put another bit of water in there, and I'm gonna do the process all over again, this time with some smaller jars, and get that done so that we can just kind of continue with the hot batch. That'll be, I think, the end of the hot chili, and then I can go into the medium. It's the next day, and I was canning until about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night last night, and did about 4 canning batches. We got all of the hot canned up, we got all of the medium canned up, and run through the canners. They've sat, they've cooled. On the brown towel, I have all our medium. There's a gray towel over here that has all of the hot. And I'm gonna bring you in a little bit closer so that you can see what we're gonna do next. Okay, we're gonna start by taking a jar and just a wet cloth and go ahead and wipe down the outside of the jar. And I'm gonna take off the band now. All of my bands I'm going to put together in a pile, and then I will boil them before I put them away, and I do that just to clean any gook that might be on the inside of the band. And then I go back and I look to see if there's any product on the outside. But one of the things that we're going to be checking is to see if we have a seal. The way to do that is to just lift lightly to see if it is going to come undone. If not, you have a properly sealed jar. So let's check another one. I'm just gonna put this over here behind me. Let's go to the second one here. These are all the mild. And I'm gonna open this. Wipe around it. And this is also sealed. So I'm gonna go through and do that with all of these jars. If we do happen to find one that the seal did not take, we can do one of two things. We can put it in the refrigerator and use it within the next day or two, or we can reprocess it again in the canner for the same amount of time. Let's check another one. And you'll see some of these kind of are loose after canning, and that's totally fine. Again, this one is good. There's no issues there. Next. And some of these jars are going to be stickier than others. Again, that one's good. So I will go through and do all of these, and let's see if we have any that had any issues. It looks like all of our medium are good to go. Let's go over to the hot. These ones are way dirtier. There was more siphoning on these. Sucks to have arthritis and try to take these off. Again, another good one. Want to clean all of the outside, make sure you get anything that's stuck on off of the jar. You can also tell by pushing in the middle if there's any that might be needing to reseal. And don't worry if you're holding it like this, because that's a good seal. See, a very good seal. It's going to take prying that open to get it to unseal. All right, here we're going to go for the big ones. Okay, that one did not seal. That's a fail. And I'm okay with that. That one's a fail. That one is not a fail. See? I told you there was a couple questionable ones. And that's okay. My failure rate has increased. All right, so I have opened up the majority of the jars. I still have some that are cooling a little bit. They were still warm, and I don't want to open those yet, but this is the majority of everything that I canned up last night. And I just wanted to thank you for joining me on the journey. I'm going to be canning some whole green chilies, or actually probably I'm going to chop some up and have those prepared, can those so that I can get those out of my freezer and refrigerator and save those before they go bad. So thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon.